More than 200,000 miles from Earth, 3 astronauts heard a sudden bang. Seconds later, warning lights filled their spacecraft. Oxygen was escaping into space, electrical power was disappearing, and the spacecraft carrying them to the moon was slowly dying. There was no rescue ship coming, no second spacecraft waiting nearby. If NASA couldn't solve the problem from Earth, the 3 men aboard Apollo 13 might never come home. On April 11, 1970, Apollo 13 lifted off from Florida. Astronauts Jim Lovell, Jack Swigert, and Fred Haise were headed toward the moon. For NASA, it was supposed to be another lunar landing. For the first 2 days, the mission appeared almost routine. Then, on April 13th, the crew was instructed to stir the spacecraft's oxygen tanks. Moments later, an oxygen tank exploded. Swigert contacted Mission Control with words that would become famous. "Houston, we've had a problem." At first, nobody fully understood how serious it was. Then, Lovell looked through the window. Something was streaming out of the spacecraft. It was oxygen. Apollo 13 was losing one of the most important things keeping the astronauts alive. And the moon landing was immediately abandoned. Now NASA had only one mission: bring them home. The astronauts moved into the Lunar Module Aquarius. It had been designed to carry 2 men to the moon's surface for a short period. Now it had to keep 3 men alive for days. They shut down systems to conserve electricity. The cabin became bitterly cold. Water was severely rationed. But soon, another invisible threat began building inside the spacecraft: carbon dioxide. The Lunar Module's filters couldn't handle 3 people for that long. NASA engineers on Earth had to improvise. Using only materials available aboard Apollo 13, plastic bags, cardboard, tape, and other equipment, they developed a makeshift adapter. The astronauts built it in space. It worked. But they still weren't safe. Apollo 13 had to travel around the moon and use lunar gravity to help send it back toward Earth. Even tiny navigation errors could become catastrophic. The crew performed critical course corrections while conserving almost every possible watt of power. Then came the final gamble. Before entering Earth's atmosphere, the astronauts had to abandon the Lunar Module and return to the command module. Systems that had been shut down for days had to come back to life. If the heat shield had been damaged by the explosion, there would be almost nothing NASA could do. Apollo 13 entered Earth's atmosphere. Radio communication disappeared. Mission Control waited. Seconds passed. Still nothing. Then, the signal returned. 3 enormous parachutes appeared above the Pacific Ocean. On April 17, 1970, Apollo 13 splashed down safely. All 3 astronauts were alive. Apollo 13 never reached the lunar surface. But what began as a failed moon landing became something extraordinary. A battle against oxygen loss, failing power, freezing temperatures, rising carbon dioxide, limited water, and hundreds of thousands of miles of empty space. NASA called the mission a successful failure. Because Apollo 13 failed to land on the moon, but succeeded at something far more important: bringing 3 men home.